Hi parents and students. I was hopeful that maybe we might be back to school at this point and we would be having a curriculum night together in some fashion. But unfortunately, we have to do it virtually, and this is the way to do it. I'm going to go through some slides with you with some information. At the end, I will share a form along with the link to this video for you to be able to ask any questions so that I can provide you with all the answers that you need. Obviously, if we had an in-person curriculum night, you would be able to get your questions answered that same day, and I hope to get a quick turnaround for you. Hopefully that the slideshow and my narration of it will answer some of the questions that you have, but please do know that I am available to you if you need me for anything. So this is curriculum night for the 2020-2021 school year, and I'm Becky Schock. I am your child's teacher. If we were at school, I would be at room 29. Typically though, I teach from my house, and today I am doing this video from my cabin in Skykomish, Washington. So let's get started. Just so that you know a little bit about me, again, I'm Mrs. Schock. I'm a nationally board certified teacher in middle childhood generalist. That means that outside of receiving my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in education and all of the years of experience that I have in professional development the school districts and the state have provided for me over the last several years, I also went out on my own and received an additional certification that makes me certified across the country. It was a rigorous process that took about a year to do, and then about a year for them to grade, and finally I received my scores in 2017, and I became a nationally board certified teacher. This year I am recertifying. It is something that I have to do every 5 years, so I am on my 4th year doing it a little early just to give myself some wiggle room in case something doesn't go right in 2020. Imagine that. Who would think something wouldn't go right in 2020? So I'm starting a little early just to give myself that grace in case I need it. I've been teaching for 12 years. I began my teaching career in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from. From there, I moved to the large state of Texas, where I taught for a number of years. I taught everything from 2nd grade through 8th grade while living in Texas, and I spent 2 years as a teacher leader as an instructional coach at the district level, supporting first-year teachers as well as teachers specifically in their math practice. I am also a mom. I have a 9-year-old human who happens to also be in our class and an 11-month-old furball, and here are pictures of them. Here's Carson, my son, and this is our cat Andromeda. So what you really came here to learn about was what is your child going to learn this year? And I'm going to be as detailed as I possibly can. Please do know that everything in a classroom, whether it is an in-person classroom or a virtual classroom, can change on a dime, depending on what the students need to know, what they already know, what they're missing, and ultimately what engages them as well. So this is the plan. However, if students are needing something different, individualized, or differentiated, I will also be addressing those needs. In English language arts, that is basically encompasses all things reading and writing. In reading, I will be utilizing a variety of different curriculum tools that are afforded to me by the school district to teach these major topics and skills. It is important to me that children are reading a variety of genres, which I know they don't all love. I know they all have their preference of genre, and that's okay, but it is also important that we do hone our skills in multiple genres. So you will find me pushing your child to try on new genres throughout the year. In all genres, we're going to really focus on identifying main ideas and themes, whether they are explicitly stated or implicitly stated or implicitly referred to. And we'll be looking for different ways to summarize our text, both the narrative texts that we read as well as the informational texts that we read. We'll be working on making inferences. In fact, that's something that we have started doing already. We will begin to analyze text structure in a variety of different genres and look at how different genres come in different structures. And there are typical structures for various types of genres. For example, a narrative paragraphs vary differently than an informational text. They follow different structural rules based on their genre. In addition to analyzing text structure, we'll also analyze text features. Now that typically occurs more in informational text, but a lot of your students really love graphic novels, and there are a lot of great text features that you can find in a graphic novel as well that are more of a narrative genre. We'll also spend quite a bit of time writing about our reading, and that's really important for deepening comprehension. We've started doing this work, but it's going to continue. In fact, I am a teacher who believes that writing about reading is not something that we do one time in a unit or a few times in a unit. Instead, we're really going to write about our reading all year long. Lastly, and most importantly, I believe, we'll be supporting our ideas and our thinking and our discussions about our reading really grounded in text evidence. A lot of us love to read for pleasure, and that's super awesome. But we also have to be able to gather information from our texts and identify where we're getting that information from. And as our texts get more and more difficult, it's going to be important that we are able to gather text evidence even when it's not explicitly stated, which for most of the students in our class, that's going to be the case based on the level of books that they're reading as well as the genres that they're choosing. So reading is really going to be focused on the thinking tasks that come along with our reading, and really focusing deeply into the metacognitive work that we do as strong readers this year. In writing, we're going to focus on three main umbrella genres, which are narrative writing, opinion writing, and informational writing. In our narrative writing, we'll start off with personal narratives, which we are going to jump into next week. Then we'll be also working on writing realistic fiction stories that follow a clear arc of a story with a hook and a climax and a resolution, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and lots of great details in between. We'll also do some opinion writing this year that will be persuasive as well as argumentative. And the difference between persuasive writing and argumentative writing is that in persuasive writing, really we're just trying to get our point across and convince somebody to agree with us or to do a thing that we want them to do. In argumentative writing, we're really also analyzing both sides of the argument and debating with ourselves within our writing. We'll do that mostly within literary essays, where we're writing about our reading, about the themes and the characters and all of the components of the things that we read, and we will debate the major lessons learned within texts. Additionally, we'll do some information writing, and that will be research-based. In all of our writing, we're going to make sure that we consider our audience, which can be one thing that's very difficult for students of this age. They want to write it the way they want to write it, and they want to always put all of their creativity and their personality into their writing, and sometimes that's absolutely perfect and the right thing to do, and sometimes it's not appropriate for the audience that we're writing for. So we will spend some time making sure that we're writing appropriately for the audience that we're addressing. We'll also try and make sure that we consider and take into account the important structures of each genre. So we'll be analyzing those in our reading, but we'll also be placing them into our writing. We're going to make sure that our writing is organized this year, and we are going to vary our sentence structures. We've already started looking at what makes a sentence at a very, very simple level, and we will continue that into compound sentences, complex sentences, independent clauses, dependent clauses, and all of the interworkings of sentence structure. And the purpose of that is really so that we can vary our sentence structure, and it will make our writing more interesting and less robotic. Lastly, in terms of mechanics and grammar, we'll really make sure that we're focusing our attention on appropriate capitalization and punctuation. I know the kids don't always think that this is the most important thing, but truly it does make our writing the most understandable to our readers. Throughout all of that, we will follow the writing process. So that's English language arts. Math is one thing that is done completely separately. So English language arts, I teach everybody together and then differentiate for the different grade levels as necessary. In math, I teach them completely separately. So third graders will use math expressions, but at the fourth grade level. And there are 2 volumes. So they received 2 workbooks. The first volume we are working in right now in Unit 1, which is place value, multi-digit addition, and subtraction, and really understanding the regrouping process, or carrying and borrowing, as we called it when we were in school, the regrouping process and why it matters in our place value system. From there, we'll move into multiplying whole numbers. So they learned how to do basic multiplication last year, and I hope that they're always practicing their math facts and getting more and more fluent in those. But this year, we will also move to multiplying larger numbers. So they will multiply a 2-digit by a 1-digit, a 2-digit by a 2-digit, a 3-digit by a 1-digit, and a 4-digit by a 1-digit. So there's going to be some big multiplying happening. And we're going to use that learning that we learned, those lessons that we learned in place value to help us with understanding that multiplication and how it works. There will be a variety of different methods that we will try on for multiplying, but ultimately it will come down to the one that your child finds the most effective, efficient, and accurate for themselves. I will ask them to try multiple strategies, but at the end of the day, they'll choose the strategy that works best for them. The same will be true for division. So we will start with reviewing back to what we did last year with that basic division, and then we will expand that to long division, which will include up to 4 digits by 1 digit this year. Again, I'll teach a variety of strategies. I'll ask them to try them all on, but at the end of the day, the one that they choose that works best for them, as long as it is of sound mathematics and not just some random strategy they made up that doesn't work, I am open to however they choose to do it in the end. The last part of Volume 1 is equations and word problems, so we'll be working with basic equations, including variables, and solving word problems. This can be a tricky unit for kids at times, simply because understanding the context of the problem and utilizing that to determine how to solve it can sometimes be difficult. In almost every other unit in math, we blatantly, point blank tell them, we're adding, we're subtracting, we're multiplying, and we're dividing. However, in this unit, they really have to fish through those word problems and determine that for themselves. So we'll learn quite a few strategies for trying to figure out what operations should we use in this scenario. Then we'll move into Volume 2, which will include measurement, fractions, and geometry. In measurement, in this 4th grade curriculum, we really focus quite a bit of time on converting measurement between different units, but not with different systems. So they'll work on, for example, converting between meters and centimeters or inches and yards, but they're not going to go from inches to centimeters unless I'm really pushing them to extend their thinking. Additionally, we'll spend quite a bit of time on fraction concepts, fraction operations, and how fractions and decimals are really the same thing and just represented differently. So we'll spend quite a bit of time on the fractions. I, as a child, was petrified of fractions, and now it's my favorite thing to teach. So I am excited and can't wait till we get to that part of the year together. They'll work on adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators this year. They'll work with improper fractions and mixed numbers, and they'll work with how to kind of take fractions apart and put them back together to make them work for how they need to use them in their different operations. And then lastly, in geometry, we'll spend some time working on quadrilaterals, triangles, area, and volume. Now, the 4th graders use a whole new curriculum this year, and this curriculum is called 6th grade Core Focus. This is the curriculum that is utilized at the middle school level with 6th graders and Challenge 6th grade. It has 3 volumes, and you have 3 books at home with you because that's what you got last week at materials distribution. We're in this first one, which appears to be the longest, but it has a bit of review on the front end. So we just finished up understanding decimals. That was place value of decimals, reading decimals, adding and subtracting decimals. And now we're moving into our second block. This curriculum doesn't refer to it as units, it refers to it as blocks. We're moving into the second block, which is multiplying and dividing decimals. So we're reviewing multiplying whole numbers, and then we'll apply what we know about multiplying whole numbers to multiplying decimals. Same thing, we'll review what we know about dividing whole numbers, and we'll apply it to dividing decimals. Kids are already starting to get a bit anxious, especially if they're new to EAP this year, because now all of a sudden there's this thing that they didn't learn last year if they came from third grade math. Please, please, please hear me when I say I am supporting them, Miss Post is supporting them, Miss Mary, our paraprofessional, is supporting them, and we will continue to do that. There is no expectation that they just learned this through osmosis. I'll be pulling extra groups to kind of help catch them up with multiplying and dividing larger numbers, because I know they did not get that last year in third grade. I know that because I taught third grade last year. So it's going to be okay. We're going to make sure that they get what they need to be successful. They're probably starting to feel that first bit of major challenge in math class, and that's really uncomfortable for them, because for a lot of them, this is the first time they're feeling that. And so they're not really sure what to do with those feelings, and we're just circling around and kind of, rallying the troops and supporting them as much as we can. Please know I am there to support them the whole way. This this section or this volume of math also goes back into fractions. So we'll review some fractions. We will add and subtract fractions, now this time with unlike denominators. So we'll be finding common denominators. So knowing those math facts is going to be really important. We'll also be multiplying and dividing fractions and simplifying them. So it will be, again, very important to know our math facts. We'll be doing area and volume, which will include area of two-dimensional figures, but also surface area of three-dimensional figures. And then it will obviously include volume of three-dimensional figures. So there's going to be some learning there as well. When we move into the second segment of math, it's this introduction to algebra section, we'll be really focusing quite a bit of time on the order of operations. We'll be spending quite a bit of time on solving equations and then integers and functions. We will go briefly into negative numbers, but they won't do a whole lot with negative numbers as far as operations are concerned until they get to 7th grade math or 5th grade EAP. Ratio, rate, and statistics, one of my most favorite things to teach are ratios, rates, and percentages, and so I'm, again, really excited for when we're going to get there. It's a lot of fun, and we'll utilize quite a bit of the learning that we did here on the front end with fractions to support our work with ratios. Social emotional learning, or SEL, is another major focus of ours this year and every year. At Hollywood Hill, we utilize the second step curriculum, which focuses quite a bit on empathy, compassion, communication, and problem solving. In this curriculum, students watch kind of little vignettes of students their age tackling social and emotional issues that are typical, and then we discuss how those model students did what they did, how it helped, and what we can do in our everyday lives. Zones of regulation is another social emotional curriculum that we utilize at Hollywood Hill, and it's really focused on our emotional regulation, understanding how we're feeling, what triggers our body is giving us to let us know how we're feeling, and then regulating our reactions to those emotions. It's important that we teach kids that their emotions are always valid and they get to feel the way that they feel, and that is always, always valid and always supported. But we do have to control sometimes the way we react to our emotions. Okay. So moving on to our next curriculum is science. The curriculum that we use in North Shore is called TCI Bring Science Alive. It has 4 units at every grade level. We typically have about enough time to get through 2 to 3 of those units. So the 3 that are blue are the 3 that we are aiming to definitely complete by the end of the year. The fourth unit, this white unit, is the one I will save for last. And I will say that part of that, excuse me, is because it is it's definitely a harder unit to teach, especially online, and so that will be the last one that we teach. It would be great if we got through all 4 units, but we're going to definitely get through these 3 blue ones. We're starting with Earth's changing surface, and then we'll move into plant and animal structures, and then energy. The reason that we're going out of order is because honestly, I think that this one, Unit 3, is the easiest for us to teach and learn online. There aren't a whole lot of hands-on investigations in this unit, and it's kind of a nice entry point into science, especially in this online arena. Then we'll move into plant and animal structures. We'll talk about the different structures that plants and animals have that help them to survive and thrive, as well as both plants and animals, excuse me. The last unit that I am will shoot for to get finished this year for sure is Unit 2 on energy. I'm saving that one for absolutely, I don't want to say absolutely last because ultimately my goal is to get through Unit 4, but I'm pushing Unit 2 out a bit in hopes that we will be back in the building to be able to do this unit. It is very hands-on and it can be a lot of fun, and I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do the hands-on experiences that come along with this unit. It's also a unit that can take up a lot of space with energy and motion, and so outside space at school would be important. So I usually like to push this one to the spring so that we can be outside in the nicer weather, not in the snow. And hopefully we'll be back at school by then. The last thing that I want to bring your attention to on this slide is this link to this form here. And this form is a permission form that the school district is asking that we get every family to sign. And it is so that your child can do minor science things at home. And we need your permission as well as their agreement that they would follow science safety protocols. I sent this out in the last 2 Friday updates, and I've gotten a little over half of them back, so I'm just linking it in here as well as another place. So that's linked there for you. My goal is to try and make science as hands-on as possible, and again, that's not super easy in this arena. I don't want them to have to watch me doing experiments because I can't imagine how that's nearly as engaging as them doing them themselves. But I also am battling with making sure that you have the materials that you need to be able to do them and they're not making a mess doing something in your home. So more to come on science and hands-on experiences with that, of course. The last curriculum I want to talk to you about is social studies. We are right now kind of midway through a study on geography and map skills. For some of the kids, this is a review. For a lot of them, it's not. We talked about continents and oceans a little bit in the first few weeks of school. Right now, we're working on models of our Earth. Last week, we talked about globes and maps, the differences, the pros and cons of each. And this week, we're focusing on longitude and latitude. Towards the end of this kind of study on geography and maps, I'm going to have them choose a country to do a very brief research kind of study on and present in some way. So more information will be coming on that. They'll get to choose the country of their choice. So, you know, if you have one that they are particularly interested in, that would be more than fine. Or somewhere that they've already been or somewhere that they would love to go. The next 2 major units in social studies will be on the First Nations of America and the Pacific Northwest, as well as Washington state history. This is what most 4th graders in the state of Washington do in 4th grade, and your 3rd graders will get a taste of it as well. 3rd grade typically does the geography of Washington and the Pacific Northwest, so it'll just be an extension of that for them. For First Nations of America and Pacific Northwest, we'll be really looking at the stories of the indigenous peoples of our area and how their lives differ from ours, as well as giving thanks for our wonderful, beautiful nature that we have here and the land that has been so well taken care of. There's also a salmon study as well involved in that. In Washington state history, we will, connecting back to kind of the First Nations of the Pacific Northwest, we'll look at what the Pacific Northwest was like prior to statehood, as well as what it means to live in Washington, be a citizen of Washington. In both of these, we're looking for different ways to do virtual field trips if we're not back in the building yet. Even if we are, I suspect field trips will kind of be off the table this year. It's just an assumption of mine. But we're looking at different ideas for that as well. Okay, so those are all of the major contents, and that was kind of the quick and dirty of those. I'm sure you have lots of questions, and at the end I'm going to share a form with you of a place where you can submit questions to me so that I can get answers to you. So earlier in the slideshow, I talked to you about how I am a National Board certified teacher, and I said that I have to recertify this year. And part of the recertification process is a lot of writing, hours and hours and pages and pages and pages of writing. And one of the things that I have to do is I have to analyze my teaching and how it impacts my students. That's kind of the major basis of the National Board recertification process. So what is my practice and how does it benefit students? And in doing that, I need to analyze student work, analyze videos of me teaching, write about that, and then submit those things for evidence to prove that I did do the things that I say that I do. To do that, I do need your permission. I want to be very clear that the National Board that evaluates me is comprised of a bunch of teachers like me, and so they are, of course, very professional. They have lots of regulations that they follow. Everything is completely confidential for the most part. It has my name on it, it has my school on it, but your child's last name is never included in anything. Your contact information is never included in anything. But I do need your permission to be able to utilize their work. So there is a permission form, and it is lengthy in words, but not lengthy in things for you to do and fill out. I copied it directly. It is a form from the National Board that I do have to use, but they did allow me to make it digital because of the situation that we're in with COVID. So basically it says all the things that I just said that I would be utilizing, videos of me teaching your students, as well as your students' work, to analyze my teaching. So again, I'm not evaluating your students, I'm self-evaluating my teaching practice, and I'm using your students' work to see what am I doing well, what can I be doing better, how can I grow as a teacher so that I can best support my students. That's what the National Board is all about. So lots of reading. Basically that all explains what I just said. But there are 2 pages for you to fill in your child's name. It does need your street address only for auditing purposes. You will not be contacted. And then there's a question asking, do you give permission for me to utilize your child's work in my work for the National Board? Please fill this out even if your answer is no, because I do need to collect who my yeses are, who my nos are, so that I know who to separate and who to make sure that I do not include. Again, please do understand that nothing is going to be used in any way to contact you, to reach out to you, or to your child. It's simply so that you're aware of what I'm doing with your students' work. Which brings us to the EdTPA. My student teacher, Miss Post, has to do her EdTPA in the next month. She has 20 days to complete this starting today. And She basically has to do the exact same thing as me on a much smaller scale. And so she also needs permission to be allowed to analyze your student's work and turn it in as part of her certification. So mine is for a board certification, which is an advanced level certification. She has to do this now just for her initial teaching certificate and to be certified in the state of Washington. Again, it's previewed by educators, professionals, and not shared with any kind of outside source. So again, even if your answer is no, please do not use my child's work. We still need you to fill it out, even if you're checking no. Okay, so that brings us pretty much to the end of this slideshow, which is about communication and reminders. I try and be as communicative as possible. Some parents would say that I'm overly communicative, but none will ever say that they haven't heard from me. So I do talk a lot, I do talk fast, I do share a lot of information, but I do that so that you can be as much in the know as possible. In a time of complete uncertainty that we're in right now, I try and share as much information with you as I can. I send a weekly update. It's a Friday email. It always has the previous weekly updates attached to the bottom of it. My goal is always to send it on Friday before I go to bed, but sometimes it does bleed into the weekend, especially if I'm waiting for information from somebody else, because I want to make sure that I give you the most accurate and up-to-date information. You can email me at my school email address, which is the quickest way to get me. You can also message me in Schoology. You can message me in Clever as well, but I'll tell you that those are not easy for me to find, and so I don't necessarily answer those the quickest because they do not alert me when they are there. The fastest way to get me is via email. I will respond within 24 hours if it's a weekday. My goal is to respond by midday on Monday if you send me an email on the weekend. Sometimes I do email back quicker than that, but I want to, kind of put these parameters on this. With online teaching, most of us are working somewhere between 10 and 12 hours a day, and so I am trying to steal time to spend some time with my family and be a mom and not just a teacher. I say as I'm recording this at 9:45 at night. But so all of that to simply say, I may respond quicker than 24 hours or midday Monday if it's a weekend, but please give me that grace. If you do not hear from me within that time frame, I'm not ignoring you. It simply means that your email has gotten buried beneath probably 50 others. So please do email me again. I'm more than happy to take additional email and get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I'm returning work. Actually, right now Miss Post is, but we return work with feedback in Schoology on an ongoing basis. So we try and batch that so that we're not grading all the time, but you should be getting graded work with feedback weekly at least. And some important reminders. Your kids are doing great with authentication for Zoom. They have to be authenticated in all Zoom meetings or they won't be able to get in. There is a weekly checklist posted on Monday in Schoology that has basically all of their assignments for the week. It also has the interest groups are embedded in that same checklist now. It's not a separate checklist anymore, so it's all in one place. We post that on Monday in Schoology. It is not required that your child uses that checklist. However, it is a great tool for them to keep themselves organized. It's also a great tool for you as a parent. You can go through and say, okay, you were supposed to do these 3 things today. I can see them in your checklist. Have you done them? Have you turned them in? So it's also a great tool for you when you're checking in with your child. As a reminder, there are 3 permission forms that we need back. The one for National Board, the one for the EdTPA, and the Science Safety Form. As I said, we need the Science Safety Form from everybody, and we need the National Board and EdTPA from everybody. Even if you're checking the no box, we do need it back. And that brings us to the very end, a fourth form, because that's the easiest way truly to gather information from you guys. I do apologize for the excessive Google Forms, but it is definitely the easiest way for us to get information from you and keep it in an organized place so we're not misplacing emails everywhere. Questions that you have, because I know I couldn't possibly have answered them all for you in the last 35 minutes, talking a mile a minute, but I do want to answer them. I want to make sure that you get all the answers that you need. And if it's a question that I don't know the answer to, I will reach out and find that answer for you. So there is an additional form. It is linked here. So if you click here, you will get straight to that form. I am also putting it in the email that this came to you in as well. So I guess that comes back to there's actually 4 forms. There's the EdTPA form, the National Board form, the Science Safety form, and this Curriculum Night Questions form. If I could have put them all in one form, I would have to save you, but they all have to be separate because they all have to be audited separately, or inventoried separately, I guess is the right word. Please reach out if you need me. My email address, again, is bschock, don't forget the C or it won't get to me, at nsd.org. You can also message me in Schoology. I'm here for you. Please don't apologize for asking questions. Please don't apologize for asking if you can Zoom or call me. I want to support you in any way that I can. I know I signed up to be a teacher and you did not, so I want to be there for you as best I can in the constraints that we have here. So I am off. Please email me if you need anything and fill out the form with any questions. Have a great evening, STAR parents and STAR students.